So I love videos where the musician or composer shares their thoughts while they are generating or composing a piece of music, and I hope you do too, because that's what this video is going to be about. I would like to share with you my thought processes as I attempted to compose what really should have been a very simple and easy piece of music, but it didn't turn out exactly as I expected. Now, the journey started when I downloaded a music box sample library. It was free. It was from our friends at Pianobook. This is an amazing community. There are over 1,000 free sample libraries there for you to have a listen to and download if you wish. Links, of course, to everything will be in the description. So this is Pianobook, and these are their music boxes. You can see there are a lot of them. You can do a search for particular types of instrument in the top right hand corner, and this is what you get if you search for music boxes. I downloaded two. This one, the Box DLX, which was the main one I used, and I also downloaded the Switzerland music box. So if you click on a sample, you get a bit of a story, you get to know about the samplers, there may be videos, there will be audio samples and demonstrations. It's brilliant. Okay, so I downloaded this and I started to play with it, and I thought it was wonderful. Now, I don't know what it is, but I really like the sound of a music box. They ought to play in tune, but sometimes they seem not to quite play in tune, and they should be very mechanical, but sometimes they seem perhaps not to be quite as mechanical, even though they obviously are. And there's just something about the sound which I find very inspiring. Now, the Box DLX is very interesting. Most small music boxes, at any rate, typically the ones found in jewellery boxes, you know, where you lift the lid and a little figure pops up and does a dance, they will have a limited number of tines. Now, if the tune only has 6 notes in it, for example, then you only need 6 tines. Most little music boxes like this might have 15, 16, 18, 19 or 20 tines. Now, you can of course get big music boxes with interchangeable cylinders, and some of these can have several dozen tines, so they can play virtually anything. And what's really interesting about the Box DLX is that it has a 7-octave range. Now, having said that, I hadn't wanted to compose a little jewellery box type music box piece of music, so I was only going to use the top 2 octaves or so. And that is the area which produces the tinkly music box sounds. So the brief which I set myself was to produce something that might fit into a jewellery box, for example, with a little figure twirling around the top. But apparently music boxes have been used in horror movies, both as a source of music and of menace. So I was thinking, could I write a creepy music box piece? Well, I think it's certainly possible, but when we think of horror music, we perhaps just think of a low cello. That low note sounds very ominous, or 2 violins playing a semitone apart. Think of Bernard Herrmann's seminal score for Psycho. Try watching the shower scene without the sound and you will see how much it contributes to it. Anyway, not having this depth or variety of tone, shall we say, available in this music box is certainly at the top end of the scale. So instead of horror, I thought, well, what about sinister, or at least dark? So that was the brief I set myself, something which might fit into a jewellery box with a figure rotating on top of it, but with a little bit of dark. Now, I thought this might take an hour, a couple of hours, get a basic idea, flesh it out a little bit. 3 days later, I had just about given up. So during my mammoth 3-day journey to write this 2-minute piece of music box music, I actually wrote, it was well over 6 different versions, but I have 6 pieces which I would like to share with you and talk you through. They are very short, typically only about 8 bars long, before I decided that this wasn't quite what I wanted and put them aside to move on to something else. But I thought you might find it interesting given the brief which I had set myself to listen to these pieces, and I'll talk you through what I thought of them then and what I think of them now, and why they didn't sort of really fit. The hope is, of course, you may possibly learn something from this, if only not to give up. But if Steven Spielberg had rang me and said, Ian, I need a 2-minute music box cue for my latest movie, but I need it by tomorrow morning, could you do it? I would have been in deep doo-doo. So just before we get into it, these are just sketches. They're absolutely not any sort of finished production or finished arrangement. I'm just messing about trying to come up with harmonic ideas and melodies. So let's have a listen to my first attempt. Okay, well, I don't think that was too bad, but it just somehow didn't really hit the spot, and some of it sounded a little bit familiar. I don't know, does it remind you of any other piece of music? So I probably spent, I don't know, 3-4 hours, perhaps even longer. I did come up with other ideas and play about with different arrangements and so on, but I got to this point and then decided, no, that's not really going to cut it. Let's put it to one side and try something else. So here is attempt number 2. A spurious note on the end there. So at this point I was thinking, let's try for some not necessarily discordant harmonies, but harmonies which sort of break you out of normal expectation. And I think that went pretty well, but it didn't really have the danceability that I was looking for from a jewellery box. Now looking back, maybe I can be forgiven for not wondering whether jewellery box and dark sinister was a good combination. But I pressed on, and this is attempt number 3. Again, trying to throw you off with the harmony. So yes, again, I was trying to throw off your ears with the harmony playing notes which you wouldn't expect to fit in. And again, that was sort of okay, but I wasn't that convinced by the tune, I don't think. So I moved on to the next one. Okay, so I started writing 80s ballads for some reason. I don't know how I managed to include that in here. It's a sort of song. It may sound familiar, I don't know. I'll find out if I get a copyright strike against it. It might have been quite danceable and it might have been quite nice in a jewellery box, but I don't think it was particularly dark, and from this perspective I can't really imagine why I wrote it thinking that it might fit my brief, but I did, and there it is. Let's press on. Oh, so I have gone from writing 1980s ballads to lullabies. I can offer no reasonable or sensible explanation for this. I think at this point I was just trying anything which came to mind to see if it was in any way remotely acceptable, which it wasn't. So here is, I think this is attempt number 6. So I quite liked that one, but I wasn't totally convinced by the descending bass line, which sounded a little bit familiar. And again, I think was probably more song-like than tune-like, in the sense of being a reasonable tune for a music box. So there were my previous 6 attempts. So after that, I didn't give up. Perhaps I should have done, but I didn't, and I came up with the first part of what eventually became the music box tune. This was towards the end of day 2. I wasn't totally convinced by it, but I thought, I've had enough now, I'm off to bed. When I got up the next day, I was totally prepared just to wipe out the entire project and not go any further. However, some stubborn part of me said, go on, have another go at it. So I looked at the last attempt, not the one you've just heard, but the one which eventually became the music box, and I thought, there could be something here, and I stuck at it and developed it and worked it, and that eventually did become the music box video. And I think it just about hit all the points. It's a little jewelry box tune with just a hint of darkness, I think. So if you haven't heard it already, there is a link in the description and a card should pop up there. So I've tried to give you a little bit of an insight into my thought processes as I was working through this marathon project. And if there is only one takeaway from it, I think it really has to be just keep going until you get something which you're happy with. Now, I'm not saying this is perfect in any way. When you listen to your old pieces of music, the chances are you will be able to think of things which you should have done and are sometimes tempted to redo them. And I listen to this and I think, oh yes, I should have done this or done that. But it is down, it is done, it is up on YouTube. So that is it for the time being. If there is another takeaway from this, and this might be actually regarded as the opposite of the first one, if you get so far into a project and it is just absolutely not working, it actually might be time either just to give up and try something else, or just to let it rest, just leave it for a few days or a few weeks and come back to it and see if your brain has machinated, is that a word, any more ideas. So I hope you found this useful, possibly mildly entertaining. I would really like to know what you think. If you have any thoughts to share about composing, if you think, well, 3 days in, 2 minutes of music, wow, what are you thinking? Oh, you must be mad. Well, I wouldn't disagree with you at all there. But if you have any comments on this video or any points to make, then I would, of course, be very interested to hear them if you leave a comment down below. As always, I really do appreciate you spending time listening to my music and watching my videos. So for that, thank you very much indeed. So if you have enjoyed this, perhaps you would like to subscribe to the channel, ring the bell. Thank you. So you get informed of new videos as soon as I release them. It's all about electronic music, synths, and, well, composition, I guess, as well. All that sort of lovely stuff. And while you're down there looking for the big red button, perhaps you would like to click the big thumb as well, because that does help enormously. So thank you very much indeed. So that's it for this video. Thank you for watching. I will see you again in the next one.